Hi, I'm Julie Cooper, a thriller writer and half of the duo bringing you our regular podcast series, Kendall and Cooper Talk Mysteries. Before I turn it over to Wendy, I'd like to say thanks to my brother Chris Squires for his original composition and performance of our theme music entitled The Man in the Panama Hat. Over to you, Wendy. I know you can't wait to introduce our guest.
That's right. And first, I'm going to talk a little bit about chasing your dreams being a team sport, even in mysteries. When each of us is on our journey, pursuing our dreams in life, whatever they may be, we're most fortunate when we have people around us cheering us on and helping us as they can. And our lives are fuller and brighter when we can contribute to our friends' and families' dream chasing. Being in this crazy pursuit together softens the blows and puts the frosting on the victories. Today, we're heading for the hills, the Hollywood hills. So grab your glitz and sparkles, Julie. Our guest spent 8 years successfully working in Hollywood, including writing for the CBS drama Cold Case. A former magazine editor, she holds a bachelor's degree in magazine writing from Florida A&M and a master's of fine arts in screenwriting from USC's famed film school. Currently a communications writer for one of the country's leading media companies, a few years ago she returned to her first love, writing books. Her first novel, just out now, is Hollywood Homicide. Congratulations on this wonderfully entertaining book, Kellye Garrett, and welcome.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Kellye, this book is your first and an exciting start of a new series. You've said that Hollywood is a place where it's better to laugh than to cry, and that this book combines your love of mystery with the absurdity that can be show business. What are your feelings as the dream that you chased has now come to life?
I'm just, I think, still in disbelief that I have a book out that people who I don't know are reading. Strangers, like not my mother. And it's so interesting because it came from such a low point where I had spent 8 years in Hollywood and I kind of knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I had moved back from LA back home to New Jersey. And I knew I wanted to write a mystery, but I didn't know the topic, So it's so interesting that my book is about kind of Hollywood and my experiences there, and my success and not successes there as well. So kind of like a low point actually is the reason why my dream came true, which I think is so interesting. So
that is an interesting twist. Well, Julie, I know you've got a bunch of questions for Kellye.
I do. I'll launch right into those. Kellye, speaking of your career in Hollywood, can you describe one key thing, one helpful thing that you learned during your time there that was directly applicable to your life as a fiction writer?
I think the key thing I learned, and I learned it when I was working on Cold Case, is about plotting. I think my book, people say it's very fast-paced and the plot works well, and I think it's because I spent a year working on Cold Case, and I also, got my master's from USC, where for me, I learned every scene needs to move the plot forward, and I also learned about kind of ending, we had acts, but ending every chapter on a high point, so people want to keep reading. They want to know what's going on. So I definitely took a lot of the things I learned in Hollywood and applied that to not to screenwriting, but to writing my book. So.
Right. That makes really good sense. Now, is there anything you'd like to forget from that time? And of course, it's just between us.
I feel like I've forgotten so much already. LA is such an interesting place because I think for every Tom Cruise who's a big success, you have 1,000 people who didn't make it, or either they stay and they're still struggling or they go home. And I just remember every time I'd walk into a party or a networking event, literally everyone would turn to you and look to see who you were, to see if you were somebody important that they needed to know. And then, of course, they'd see it was just little me, and then, of course, they all would turn away disappointed. But so I don't miss that element at all about LA, because I was horrible at that fake networking. So
fascinating. I think that certainly gives us a lot of insights into the culture there. Now, you've been blogging for International Thriller Writers Debut Author segment. Can you tell us a little bit more about being a debut author, what it's really like, and is it living up to your expectations?
Yes and no. I mean, not that I thought that, once I got my book published, it'd be happily ever after, but I guess I'm surprised because a lot of those insecurities that I had before the book was published, they're definitely still there. They don't magically disappear like I was hoping.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is I signed my deal with Midnight Ink, I think last June of 2016. And my book came out in August. And I don't think people are always like, oh, when's your book out? When's your book out? And they don't understand why it takes such a long time, And so that was kind of a learning experience for me where it's a matter of, okay, you have to do edits and you have to figure out the cover, and then you have to figure out marketing, and then you have to, get these advanced reader copies so people can read the book and get excited about it. There's so many things that go into it that I see why it takes so long for a book to published. So.
Okay. All right. Good. That helps. Mm-hmm. Now, I've really enjoyed your website. I know Wendy has as well, and especially the annotated blog segment for your new book, which is something I've never seen from any writers on their websites. How did that come about?
It came about because I had one extra ARC, which is the advanced reader copy, and I knew my actual books were coming out soon, so I asked my friend, I said, I have this ARC. What should I do with it? And she said, you should do an annotated version of the book where you put notes in about different things in the book, and you should do a special giveaway. I thought, oh, that's such a great idea. And then, of course, I tried it, and my handwriting sucks. It's horrible. I can't even read it myself. So I was like, you know what? How about I turn it into a blog? So I'm still trying to do the annotated special edition, but they'll also have to look at the blog, too, to see what I actually wrote. So that's where it came from, just trying to get rid of an ARC. So
it's great because it gives you sort of insights into, it lets us as a reader get into your head and sort of, see what you're thinking about as you're actually writing the book. So that was really valuable, at least for me, I think. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Now, can you tell us more about Pitch Wars?
Sure. So Pitch Wars is a contest that was started maybe 5 years ago by a woman named Brenda Drake. And the idea, it's an online writing contest where they take an agented or more experienced writer and they pair them with a writer who doesn't have an agent yet. So it's a mentor-mentee relationship. And we spend 2 months revising the mentee's manuscript for what they call an agent round, which is where we do a pitch and also the first 250 words. And if the agent likes it, they'll request more. And so I actually was a mentee in 2014, and that's how I met my agent, Michelle Richter from Fuse. And my book, Hollywood Homicide, was actually the book I revised in Pitch Wars. So I'm a big believer in how effective it is. And I've actually been a mentor now for 3 years. This is my 3rd year. And my mentee's book from 2015, Kristen Lipyanka, The Last Place You Look, came out in June from St. Martin's. So she's had, I think, over 250 success stories at this point, which is just amazing.
That is amazing. Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
It's a great contest. And if you're a writer, and I would suggest, unfortunately, it just finished this year, but next summer, definitely look into it. So.
Good. I definitely will. And I think Wendy might as well. So
sure, definitely. Let me know.
Great.
That is very good information. Yeah, I'm just making a note on my calendar. I've got it on my calendar now. Kellye, I have to tell you, I enjoyed your book so much, and really on so many different levels. You obviously love mysteries, and you certainly know how to write a mystery. Bravo to you. I loved the puzzle solving that you created. And what was your favorite part of imagining and plotting the Hollywood Homicide book?
That's a good question. I think for me, I always knew what the bigger, like the end of the act, bigger twist were. but I tried to have fun with trying to get from, one big twist to the other, all those details. And I also had, I think, the most fun creating the characters, and just like there's a character named Sienna who her whole goal in life is just to be famous, and she's very kind of self-involved, but she's also like a really good friend. So I just having so much fun creating these characters, and like I guess letting them say things that I personally could never say or do, but I'll just have her say it. It's great. So
Yeah, I really liked it that each of these characters, they all had their own goals, and they, so it's like as a reader, I became like I was rooting for each of them for each of their goals. In your book's acknowledgments, you have a thank you to, and I'm probably going to mess up the names. Well, I'll just do the first names: Terry and Katie and Sandy and the entire Midnight Ink staff for realizing that there aren't enough mysteries written by people of color and deciding to do something about that. Can you expound more on that, and what have readers been missing?
Well, Sisters in Crime did a diversity report last year in 2016, and they found at the time there were only 69 Black authors who had mysteries published by traditional publishers. And as crazy as that sounds, because there's 300,000 books who are published every year. So to only have 69 total in the history of time is crazy. But our group we actually have had more than like Latinx people or people who are LGBTQ, so we can't even complain because we actually have it better than like Asian Americans and other groups. And so one of the things that Terry told me was, when she was trying to find comps for my book, because it's an amateur detective novel with a Black main character, she couldn't find any. And she, of course, was surprised. I've been reading mysteries half my life at this point, for 20 years. And I wasn't surprised because I look for them and I don't see them.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able, one, they bought the book is amazing. But also, if you look at my cover, the focus of my cover is actually my main character, and she's literally just standing in the center of the street and looking directly, basically out. And so I just appreciate the fact that they embrace that she's a woman of color and put her like square on the cover. They didn't shy away from the fact that this is a book about a Black person. Now, that doesn't mean that anyone can read it and enjoy it, but just the fact that it's a book about a Black person, I just think that's so great. Because I don't know of other publishers, they might not have done the same thing. So
yeah, and to our listeners, that is the cover that you're seeing on the podcast itself, and it's just a beautiful color, and it
is.
Yeah, you just when you see it on the shelf, you just go right to it. You want to read it.
They did such an amazing job, and that actually wasn't even the initial cover was more a traditional cozy where you just saw her legs, and then they decided they didn't want to do that. And so I was so surprised because I actually don't like seeing faces on the cover, but I love my cover, and it was just perfect. So it's a case of letting the professionals do their job and not saying anything, and it works out. So.
Oh, that's
good.
That's interesting. That's good advice. Yeah, they know what they're doing. This, like I said, this cover is really appealing. In addition to all the mystery solving and everything, I think that your writing is absolutely hilarious. The humor in your book is literally laugh out loud funny. And I can personally attest to getting some concerned glances from strangers until they realized that I was reading a book, because I really could not stop myself from laughing. I felt there were parts where I just felt like I was out with a bunch of my girlfriends, and it's just the humor is so natural, coming just right from the characters. What are the advantages of writing humor into your mystery?
I'm a scaredy cat. I don't like horror movies. I don't like James Patterson. I think the first Alex book that he did, I still have nightmares about one of the scenes. And so, but I do like mysteries. So I prefer mysteries that have humor, it kind of, because it is less scary, and also for me, you like to escape.
Yeah.
For me, a book is things you do to escape, and I don't necessarily always want to be, I don't know, scared or in some magical world. I just want to laugh sometimes, and just get away from the problems of the world. So that's why I appreciate mysteries that have humor in them and just humor in general. So it's a good escape, in my opinion. So.
Does the humor just, I have to ask you this. I mean, does the humor just roll right from your fingertips, or are you doing a bunch of rewrites to get it? Because it's really funny.
It's a mix where there are definitely, I'm a big rewriter, but there are definitely times where like I'll just be walking down the street and especially with Sienna, I'll think of like a really funny line, and it'll just come to me, and then I'll make sure I somehow put it in there. Like I'll write it with notes really quickly. So it's a mix. That sometimes some scenes are definitely easier to write than others. So, and some characters too. So.
And are you getting feedback like from beta readers on the humor, or?
I have about 3 women who have read every page I've ever written, including good and bad, with this series, and so they definitely give me feedback on it, and they're definitely tough critics. So if they like something, they think it's funny, I believe them. It's not like my mother who's gonna just tell me I'm amazing. Like your mom tells you you're amazing no matter what you do. So
right.
My mom loved my book too. Yay!
Well, you're writing about Hollywood, and of course, the setting is irresistible. And I like the way that you both made some fun of the La La Land, and also layered in some interesting information about the town and the celebrity business. Do you have any insights into what it is about Hollywood that brings such universal reader appeal?
I think I have a line in the book that says Hollywood is like high school. And I think that's what it is. I think that like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, those are like the popular kids. And like in high school, like we always were like, ooh, what's going on with, you hear like gossip and drama about like the prom queen and the football player star, and you love it in high school. And I think for me, that's our version, our grown-up version is, like, ooh, celebrities, what's going on with them? And they wear pretty dresses and they do this and they do that. So I think that's why people love it. It's basically our chance to be like our high school moment as adults. So
I know exactly the part in the book that you're talking about. I love that part. It starts with that line, and then it develops into this really great paragraph that also had me laughing. But you're right, it's got great insights in it. I know exactly where you're talking about in the book. That's the thing about your book. There's so many great parts like that I'm carrying them in the back of my mind. Really. Dialogue and descriptions that stay with the reader. I just loved it.
Oh, thank you. Good to know.
Well, the rollicking friendship that you've got between Dana, Sienna, and Em is heartwarming and fun. And your book dedication is for Kim McCoy, who was the Dana to your Sienna. So can you talk a little about the meaning of friendships and about the friendships that you write about in your book?
Sure. I am such a girl's girl in the sense that I love supporting women, and I'm just so blessed that I have a core group of friends from college and from LA. Like those 3 women I mentioned before, they're all friends from LA. And, it's such a great support group. And so when I wrote this, I definitely wanted Dana to have that support group, And when I was going through my low point, 5 years ago, they were the people who helped, keep me up and supported me. And so when Dana's kind of in a career transition, and so it was important for me to have, to see she has a family in LA. It's not her blood family, but it's her family. Because for me, my girlfriends are like my sisters and my family. And I definitely wanted to show that with Dana as well. So.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, I just love the way it reads. And I have to tell you, for your future writing, I am so cheering for a romantic entanglement between Dana and Omari. So, does writing a male romantic interest present challenges?
For me, I'm not a romance writer. And so when people say they actually like the romantic element, I'm like, really? Wow, I didn't realize. It's funny because after when I was on sub with the book, there was a publisher that rejected me, but they were like, oh, if she has some romance ideas, let us know. And I was like, what? So the fact that they actually liked the romance that much was amazing to me. And so I think with mysteries, it's so tricky because it's not a romance, it's about the mystery.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a struggle for me, was trying to figure out the best way to have that involved without taking away from the mystery. And so my solution with that was that he has some key information that she needs. But at the time, they got into a huge fight over him basically hitting on her in the car when he was drunk. And so they're not talking. And so she kind of refuses to contact him, until she has to. She has no other option. So that was I think that's also why with a lot of cozies, the love interest is always the cop, because it just makes it easier, since it's a mystery, to have hit two birds with one stone in a scene with romance and mystery when, the cop's there too. So.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good way to heighten up the tension a little bit too.
Yeah, because I feel like every cozy that's a staple. And even with me, I said, oh, I don't want her to have a love interest who's a cop. So Omari plays a cop on TV. So that's my little wink to cozy cop love interest.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, I really want to encourage our listeners to check out your website at kellyegarrett.com, and I'm going to spell it just to be sure you've got it, is KellyeGarrett.com, to get more information about your books and events.
Terrific. And I have one last question for you, Kellye. Can you tell us what's next for your Hollywood Homicide series? Are there any sneak peeks you can give us?
Sure. I have a 3-book deal, so there will definitely be at least 2 more Detective by Day mysteries.
Excellent.
I just turned the second one in June or July, I think. And that one takes place during award season, which is about a 3-month period, beginning of the year, when like the Oscars and the Golden Globes happen in Hollywood. Just every week there's a new awards and everyone's dressed up and pretty. And so a publicist for an award show ends up being murdered after a cocktail party. And so Dana ends up investigating that. So that's what the second book's about.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. That sounds so good. Okay, I'm waiting.
And when will that one come out?
It's definitely summer of 2018. I want to say August, but I don't have the exact date. And it's called Hollywood Ending. And then I have to figure out the 3rd book. So that's going to be starting in September. I'm going to try to figure out what exactly what's going on, because I have no.
Oh, great. Great. Excellent. Well, I'm going to launch into my segment, and I've titled it About Women, and it's in honor of a new book of the same title by a woman who's lived an astonishing life. I happened to see a feature just the other day on Françoise Gillot, an amazing artist, writer, and a muse to Pablo Picasso for many years. Now, she met him when she was 21 and he was 61. I'm raising eyebrows now. And yes, they became romantically involved. They had 2 children together, and then eventually she had enough of his genius and she left him. The only woman, he said, to ever leave Picasso. He's famously quoted, and this tells you a whole lot about his personality, as saying, "A woman is either a goddess or a doormat." Now, this made me think of the need for more diverse, in all the meanings of that word, female characters in mystery and thriller fiction. In many of the earlier mystery, thriller, and detective novels, women appeared in one of only 3 roles, kind of archetypes. that of the helpful sidekick family member or neighbor, that of the femme fatale hooker bad girl who's devious, sexy, and manipulative, and last, the little woman at home or the innocent victim, or even the usually absent attractive girlfriend. Women who had the personality of, well, let's put it this way, a doormat. Those characters were often window dressing, put into a book, often by a male author, because they needed to have a female character in there somewhere. Not what I had in mind, and not what I want to read. Fortunately, I'm seeing much more diversity in female sleuths, cops, coroners, soldiers, spies, combined with a host of unique characteristics ranging from brilliantly twisted androgynous hacker Lisbeth Salander in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, to Helen Mirren's detective chief inspector role, where she's the boss, in the Prime Suspect PBS series, to Kellye's Hollywood-based amateur investigator, a woman who knows the seamy side of celebrity all too well. This is long overdue, and this direction is only going to improve the quality of what we read as fiction, begins to better reflect our current world and the diverse individuals in it. And as for Françoise Gillot, well, she later met and married the love of her life, Dr. Jonas Salk, who is a Nobel Prize-winning developer of the polio vaccine. She's now 91 years old, funny, sharp as a tack, and yes, she's still painting and writing, living a creative life. We should all be so lucky.
Oh, that's beautiful, Julie. Thank you. Today I'm going to talk about Take Me As I Am. In the acknowledgments for Kellye's book, she thanks her siblings, saying, "No one knows me and accepts me as is like you guys do." This type of supportive friendship looms large throughout Hollywood Homicide. This is a theme reflected in much of literature, including sisters as best friends, as in Little Women. Making characters real, multidimensional, and with idiosyncrasies that friends and families will embrace is so important in order for readers to care about the protagonist in a story, and then to care about the story. The reader also becomes someone who accepts and supports the main character despite that character's idiosyncrasies or faults, because they see this acceptance modeled by other characters. A character can become beloved through their unique personality. It tells something to the reader about the character as well, when that main character is called upon to reciprocate for other characters. We want to see that loyalty and support demonstrated by our heroes. It's so important that a writer take this bond seriously and portray it lovingly. It's so important that a character has someone or someplace they can go to feel they can truly be themselves without judgment. Don't we all yearn for that? Don't we all have fictional friends as well as our own real friends? Okay, I know that sounds odd to a lot of people, but we readers do accumulate fictional friends. You don't read Raymond Chandler just because you want to know who killed the chauffeur in The Big Sleep. You want to hang out with Philip Marlowe. As a Laura Childs fan, I gush over especially her Tea Shop Mystery Series, to hang out with Theodosia and Drayton and their gang. In some odd way, they're just like family. Think about your favorite series. Do you feel the same? Now, I feel the same about Dana, Sienna, and Em in the Detective by Day series. And I'm going to go ahead and give you my book recommendation. It is a book called The Art Forger by B.A. Shapiro. Isabella Stewart Gardner, an art collector and philanthropist, founded a museum of international art in Boston. On March 18, 1990, a pair of thieves disguised as Boston police officers entered this museum and stole 13 works of art. This true story is the catalyst for the plot in this art crime novel, The Art Forger. The novel's heroine, Claire Roth, is a talented artist with a question punctuating her past. She makes a living working as a reproduction artist for an online company. She aspires to artistic greatness in her own right with her own paintings. This novel focuses on a fictitious version of a painting titled After the Bath by Edgar Degas, as if it was included with the stolen works on paper by the Impressionist artist. The museum theft has never been solved, the mystery continues, and the precious works have never been recovered. What if one of the genuine stolen pieces was delivered to your doorstep, and as a reproduction artist, you have the opportunity to get the original returned to the museum? Claire Roth finds herself in this position. Does the end justify the means? When is a reproduction a forgery? Do good intentions make a difference? And what motivates the people involved? Is there trust among thieves? This author is masterful in keeping the pace exciting throughout this crime mystery. At the same time, she artfully blends extensive research into the story with revealing insights of art history and interesting techniques on how forgeries are done. Suspense builds as we learn about how forgeries are discovered or missed. The chase to the original Degas includes perilous hurdles and unexpected twists that are full of surprises. The characters are all fully developed and intriguing. The author's vivid language certainly paints the picture as the heroine wields the brush. You feel the passion and see the images described as if they are live before you. Your art interest will be inspired by this book, especially in Degas' work, and you'll feel a thirst to learn more. The final reveal resonates with the tense conflict there is between the grandeur of an artist's vision colliding with the ambition of fanatic passion. The Gardner Museum continues to actively investigate any and all leads related to this theft. The focus of the investigation today is on the return of the artworks. A $5 million reward is offered for information leading to the recovery of these works in good condition. Kellye, I'm wondering if you have a book recommendation for us, and I'm kind of hoping it might be a recommendation about the craft of writing.
Well, first, I actually have The Art Forger on my Kindle. I've never read it, so I think I'm probably going to start reading it after this interview because you made it sound so amazing. So thank you. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, I do pitch wars. I'm a mentor, and so I get a lot of questions asking about a great book if you're starting out writing mysteries. And when I started writing Hollywood Homicide, the book that I found that helped me the most was called Writing and Selling Your Mystery Novel by Hallie Ephron. And I think when it's a couple editions. She just released a new edition, and I think it's so great because she takes you step by step to creating a great mystery. So you do character development, you do plot development, you do look at your villain, you look at red herrings, and then after that she kind of also walks you through how to query, how to find an agent, things like that. So that's always the one book that I always suggest that people get starting out. And again, it's called Writing and Selling Your Mystery Novel. So
I just put it on my list.
It's on my shelf right now. I can see it from where I'm sitting. So. Great. Well, I've got a book recommendation as well, and it's called The Assassins by Gale Lin. And I'm happy to say that I treasure a copy of this thriller that Gale signed for me back in Manhattan, and I was honored to be one of her students at this summer's Thriller Fest's intensive workshop called Mastercraft Fest. And this is another edge-of-your-seat thriller which instantly hooks you, starting when the male protagonist, Judd Ryder, walks home and sees a man near his house who looks exactly like him. In fact, he's even wearing his clothes. Minutes later, the imposter is killed in a deliberate hit and run, and Judd wonders, was the double the intended victim, or is someone out to kill him? Judd links up with a former girlfriend, CIA trainee Eva Blake, a very capable, level-headed woman, and they trace leads back to a man known only as the Carnivore, a notorious international assassin, hence the title, The Assassins. Since Judd and Ava were among the last people to actually see the Carnivore, Judd believes someone is trying to lure the assassin out of hiding, using them as bait. But why? The story flashes back briefly to a time when 6 master assassins banded together to steal and then hide a fortune. But the mission went horribly wrong, and each man went into hiding until now. The action's almost nonstop, with lots of international settings, from the seat of power in D.C. to Marrakesh to the lethal back alleys of Baghdad. The reader races forward with the main characters, wondering who will be the last man standing. And where did Saddam Hussein's long-missing $40 billion fortune really end up? And yes, that's an actual fact. That fortune has never been found. Gale provides us with amazing settings, insightful character development, and intriguing tradecraft about the business of espionage. The Associated Press calls Gale a master of the modern Cold War spy thriller, and I highly recommend this entertaining book. I think that's about it for today, and I'd like to give special thanks to our guest, Kellye Garrett, for joining us talking about Hollywood Homicide and the next 2 books in her series. And Wendy and I are going to now listen to the music taking us out, and it's The Man with the Panama Hat. Thanks again. Keep reading and keep writing.